So if you clicked on this video, you probably want to learn some brief, very quick ways to get started with learning concept art in 2025. The landscape of concept art has changed a lot, but some things remain the same. So I'm going to give it to you in bullet point. Some of you are going to be like, whoa, this is all new stuff. And then others of you are going to be like, well, I already know this part, but watch through the whole video because there's a lot of stuff in here. You might be at a different place in the progression of this, but if you're looking to get into concept art specifically, which is a very different field than just art or Instagram art or YouTube art, for example. A lot of what you see on YouTube or Instagram, that ain't concept art. And you can't make that into a game. You can't make that into a movie. And I'm going to be talking about concept art for video games. That's what I've done for 20 years, 20 plus years now. And some of this is going to overlap with other industries. Of course, if you want really in-depth stuff, like the real hardcore stuff, like I'm sure some YouTuber that you heard of, maybe you're watching now, has Gumroad tutorials that go real in-depth on the process of making concept art for video games, but I don't know where those could be, like maybe on their Gumroad. Link in the description below. But that's just for like the super serious people who've already committed, okay? Like if you're just looking to get your feet wet with it, this is a good place to start. Okay, number one, the very first thing that you're gonna wanna work on, yes, is your drawing skill, your digital art painting skills. Now, I'm not talking about your, pencil on paper, although it's good to have those basic understandings of light and form and construction and perspective. If you can't draw and you can't paint, how do you expect to convey ideas, right? You cannot write a book, for instance, if you don't speak the language. It's like really important to have the toolkit, right? So think of like learning your fundamentals and practicing your fundamentals every day as like the language that you're using to explain something. It's the words that you're using. It's just a visual vocabulary, okay? So you want to work on that. And by the way, yeah, that is the stuff that's going to carry over to like, your Instagram and your Twitter and your YouTube and like all the places where you want to have flashy illustrations and flashy art and cool, beautiful paintings. Like that stuff carries over. But concept art itself is more than just pretty paintings. I'm going to say that again because I need to drive it home. Concept art is more than just pretty pictures. You might be asking yourself, like, wait a minute, whoa, Trent, like if I'm doing beautiful paintings, why can't I get a job as a concept artist? Like, why isn't that enough? I love looking at like Sam Does Arts, beautiful art, like that guy can paint in unbelievable ways, and but not concept art. That is not concept art. It's not useful for developing video games. You give those drawings to a modeler and they're gonna go, what do I do with this? There's a YouTube video idea for you. Sam Does Arts, unemployable as a concept artist. Very employable as a illustrator, by the way. And you might be going, well, Trent, I don't understand. If I can paint like crazy, like why can't I get a job as a concept artist? Why is that not useful? Because there's gonna be people that are gonna be angry about that. And it's not my rule, man. If an artist that's an incredible illustrator wants to choose to be a concept artist for video games, there are a set of things that they're going to need to learn to do. And that's what I'm really going to focus on for this video. To explain it, I'm going to give you a short version of my own history. I was a comic book artist in the 90s and early 2000s, and I somehow miraculously, despite all odds and everybody telling me I couldn't, I got a job in video games during the PS2 era. Specifically, my first video game that I shipped was on GBA, and then the second real major game I shipped as a concept artist was on PlayStation 2. And so I had to learn before any universities or any art books would and there were no educational programs. There was no YouTube back then. You couldn't just go and find out, what does a concept artist do for a video game? In fact, that's the whole reason I started my YouTube channel, was to expose hey, here's all the stuff that I learned making video games that could help you to make video games. And the answer that I found while working at Capcom will shock you. Okay, so the number one thing that you could do is start to make games with other people. Specifically, you want to work with game designers who are going to present challenges to you that have confinements and restrictions, and you're going to want to work with 3D modelers who are going to have to build your designs in 3D. Even better if you have a producer that will also keep you on schedule. You might be going, well, wait a minute, that sounds like a job. That's right. You're going to be doing a job that you're probably going to be doing for free for a while because nobody pays somebody who doesn't know what they're doing yet. Any more than you want to have your Uncle Toby, who has no mechanical knowledge at all, try to fix your car. But you want to try to find the most open doors that will give you those 3 people to work with. So that means mods, or indie projects, or anything where you're working with a team of 3D modelers. And you will very quickly find out from them, they will tell you this, that you need to learn to make your designs functional. And what I mean by that is that you need to show sketches of how things function, how they work. So if you have a part of your character that has moving parts, you need to have little doodles and sketches to show how that moving part actually animates or moves. If you have like a back view, it can't be obstructed or obscured by a cape or long hair, for example. You have to show the 3D modeler all of the information. And a lot of times, real concept art, such as like, say, the armor designs that I did on Diablo 3, I had to do these like what they call a T-pose, which is just the character standing from the front, the side, and the back, and show how the pieces all connect and fit together so that the 3D modeler has a very clear view. It's like a blueprint is more of what it is. Like, it's sort of like the difference between an architect who has to design blueprints and Thomas Kincaid, for example, the artist that did all those, like, you see them on Christmas cards of these like cabins in the snow and just beautiful scenery. That's the very specific example of the difference between concept art and illustration. Real production concept art is not very glamorous, and a few of you may even be rethinking whether you want to do concept art after you hear that. It's not what you want to hear. It's like, I'm not trying to make you mad. It's just that's what it is, man. Like, that's what your job is. You're designing a story, a world. You're designing the blueprints for the 3D modelers to build that world. And so, in fact, the second thing that it would be really valuable for you to do if you want to learn to be a concept artist in 2025 is to learn some basic 3D modeling. And that could mean, as simple as just getting a free program like Blender. And yeah, I have some tutorials here on my YouTube channel to walk you through the basics of Blender and building out some scenes in 3D. A lot of the work that concept artists actually do will be like, we get these grayscale gray boxes is what they call them, where the game designer and the 3D modeler have already kind of worked out the space. Like, because it's important. Like, if you're designing an environment, for example, for, say, Diablo 3, then you would get this gray box image of like a location, and they had to figure out, okay, so there's tight corridors for gameplay, and then there's these destructible objects, and then you would get this sort of gray 3D box that sort of has really primitive shapes. It's collision boxes, essentially, is what it is, and you paint over that, and that allows you to like understand, okay, so if I'm working with tight corridors, then I need these certain types of designs like built into the walls, and like maybe that affects the story. And if you got a big hole in the wall, maybe you start getting creative with the story of like, oh, well, maybe this, there's these giant, molten lava things that blast through the wall every 30 seconds because that's part of the gameplay. And maybe you've got to work that into the story, and that's going to determine and dictate a lot of what your design is going to be. And so you can very quickly begin to understand why you've got to really build a world here. And I've made several videos about this, but I'm going to go into a couple of other things that you can practice. And one of the things that I do, and the number one thing that I'm going to recommend to you if you want to learn concept art in 2025, is to go ahead and start building out your universe. That's what I did. What you're watching in this video is the world of Twilight Monk. I started doing these art books, and they're basically like everything that I was doing in concept art, like working out all the stuff I was talking about earlier in this video. Relationships between characters and towns, and like what resources characters have, and like thinking about the universe holistically, and the story can be determining the design of your characters. For example, a character who's of a certain religious faith, that comes from a specific town where they believe in this, deity or creature or whatever, like, they worship it. And so like that symbol is all over the character's designs, in the armor and in the shapes of everything. Every visual cue that you add to your character, are they carrying a knife around? What kind of knife is it? How do they wear their hair? And like, are they smoking a cig? Like, what that says a lot. Every one of those details says a lot about what the character is and what they represent and what they do. And like this kind of thinking is just, you have to train and practice your brain to think about your whole universe, and the stories that you come up with are part of the process of being a concept artist. A good concept artist is a good storyteller. So work on your storytelling. If you're a concept artist, you need to be an idea factory, not just an idea factory, but you need to be an idea factory that's very articulate with your visual vocabulary and your language. The truth about concept art is that most people really don't want to do it, which is why I always say there's a shortage of it, because most people have a different idea about what concept art for video games actually is. It requires a great deal of fortitude, a great deal of psychology. You're going to have to understand yourself, your own motivations. You're going to have to understand how to get yourself riled up and, excited to do your 51st version of a statue. That's right. Sometimes you're going to have to do 51 iterations or more of the same statue before you get the design approved. And for those of you out there that are like, oh, that sounds actually pretty good to me, I'd love to just get a paycheck to design worlds, I still really want to make video games. Well, you know what, man? The great news is there's 99% of your competition, 99.9% of your competition are going to drop off. It's true, though. It's like, it's a super hardcore, difficult job, especially as an artist. And that's part of why I did it for 20 some plus years. I retired. Now I make my own games and I make my own novels, illustrated novels and art books and stuff. And I teach, and that's my gig. So certainly would love to pass along the information, the knowledge of what I had learned all those years of doing it. You know, I feel like I'm going into my Master Roshi phase, like old man turtle monk out on the island someplace, just doing kung fu and looking at dirty magazines. So if you do pick up any of my courses, let me know and I'll take you to the Strongest Under the Heavens Championship and we'll rock the concept world together. Let's go. All right, thank you so much for stopping by. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, ciao.